Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing some recommendations about the Borgias. I don't know why, you guys, but I was in a Borgias mood for this month. I just felt like sharing some books about the Borgias. And if you don't know who the Borgias are, I probably should have wrote down like a quick Wikipedia summary because I feel like I'm going to butcher some of this, but hopefully I get all this correctly. The Borgias, they were a very notorious family back during the late 1400s, kind of going into the early 1500s. And yeah, its most notorious members of this family, you have Rodrigo Borgia, who became Pope Alexander VI, and then you have his oldest son, Cesare Borgia, who was an excellent man of war, if you will, a strategist, and yeah, the basis of Machiavelli's The Prince. And then you have the beautiful Lucrezia Borgia, who was a powerhouse back in her day, considering that she was a woman. And then, yeah, you have Juan Borgia, Geoffrey Borgia, and yeah, just a lot of people kind of surrounding the Borgias, because you had like Sancha of Aragon, and then you have like Caterina Sforza. So yeah, just a lot of huge prominent figures during this time when the Borgias were around. And yeah, that includes other people like Machiavelli and Leonardo da Vinci, you know, big people like that. And I first got my interest in the Borgias through the TV series, The Borgias, that aired several years ago, and it starred Jeremy Irons as Pope Alexander and Francois Arnaud and Holiday Granger. I loved that show. I was pretty devastated when it ended because I think there was supposed to be a fourth season, but they didn't get that fourth season. But yeah, the 3 seasons that it had, I love that show, and it gave me this obsession with the Borgias, to be quite honest. I mean, they are such a fascinating family, and the thing is, we really don't know what is truth and what is fiction, because there is all of these questions about incest and whether or not they poisoned their enemies. You know, we really don't have all of the answers to some of these greater mysteries about the family, you know, how deep their cruelty and their malice was. So yeah, I have 13 recommendations here. If you already love the Borgias, you've probably already read a good chunk of these books, but yeah, if you would like to get into this family and this time period, some of these recommendations might spark your interest. So, looking through my notes here to make this video go quickly as possible, the first book we have here is The Borgia Bride by Jean Calogridis, and I have read this book and really enjoyed it. And this follows Sancha of Aragon, and she marries into the notorious Borgia family, and she gets wrapped up in all the mystery and intrigue. Next is another book by Jean Calogridis, which I really enjoyed, and this is The Scarlet Contessa, and this follows Caterina Sforza. Seriously, I love this book, you guys. So amazing. And yeah, Caterina Sforza, she was just a really amazing, powerful woman back in the day, and yeah, really holding her own against Cesare Borgia when he attacks her castle. Next is Blood and Beauty by Sarah Donat, and I have also read this book. I didn't really like this book that much because it definitely stuck closer to fact, if that makes sense, because I'm weird perhaps. What I love about the Borgias, I love the whole idea of incest and poison and, you know, them just being all wacky and crazy. I love that idea. And yeah, I think what Sarah Donat was doing with this particular book, she wanted to stay a bit more focused on perhaps the facts and the reality, more so than the craziness of the family. And then we have another book by Sarah Donat, and this is called In the Name of the Family. And I don't think this is a sequel to the previous book. I'm not quite sure, because, you know, like even on Goodreads, it doesn't have them listed together like they're they're part of a series. But either way, this book, it is kind of the second half of the life of the Borgias, because this one is focusing on Alexander, who is aging, and yeah, I'm guessing leading up to a lot of the deaths that are about to occur in the family. Next, perhaps one of my most favorite books about the Borgias is The Family by Mario Puzo. And yeah, oh my god, you guys, this is seriously amazing. I think this book, if I'm not mistaken, this book was either written back in the 70s or 80s, and sometimes I have a hard time getting into books that were written kind of that long ago, you know, in the 70s or 80s, but yeah, I freaking loved this book. And Mario Puzo, he's on top of everything, you know, he's on top of all of the infamy and the notoriety, and yeah, he's into all of the incest and the poisoning and the murders, and I love that. Plus, if you didn't already know, my understanding, because Mario Puzo also wrote The Godfather, and yeah, The Godfather, the characters like in The Godfather, they're all kind of supposed to be almost like the Borgias in some ways. Next, we have Madonna of the Seven Hills by Jean Plady, and this is a book that was written back in 1958. And yeah, this is a 3-book series, essentially just following the life of Lucrezia Borgia. And then we got another trilogy here by Sarah Poole, and this is called Poison, or the Poisoner series, or the Poisoner Mysteries I have here. And yeah, this is about a young girl named Francesca, and she's determined to avenge her father's murder, and she becomes the official poisoner in the Borgia household. So yeah, a little bit of variety here, something not entirely focused on the Borgias, but set in the world of the Borgias. And this sounds like a really good series. I'll definitely have to pick that up. Next, we have The Serpent and the Pearl by Kate Quinn, and this is a duology, and this follows Giulia Farnese, who is the mistress of Pope Alexander. And it follows her plus this dwarf who is seeking revenge, and then a female cook who has some sort of deep, dark secret about her past. So yeah, I've read the first book of this duology. I cannot wait to get the next book. This is seriously a really good, intriguing story. I highly recommend it. Next, I have Sins of the House of Borgia by Sarah Bauer, and I own this book, but I have yet to read it, unfortunately. And yeah, this follows a young woman named Esther, and she's been exiled from Spain, and she joins the Borgia household, becoming Lucrezia's lady-in-waiting. Next, we have The Vatican Princess by C.W. Gortner, and this is also about Lucrezia Borgia. Lucrezia Borgia, everybody loves Lucrezia Borgia, you guys. She's just, seriously, just such an interesting woman. Next, we have Mirror Mirror by Gregory Maguire, and I have read this book, and this is essentially a Snow White retelling, you guys, but Lucrezia Borgia is essentially the evil queen in this story, who's trying to get rid of her stepdaughter. And yeah, Cesare Borgia makes his appearance and whatnot. And it's funny because I read Mirror Mirror prior to seeing the TV series with Jeremy Irons. So I had no idea about the Borgia family, and I really had no interest in them at the time I was reading this book. So when I read this book, I was kind of more into the Snow White retelling aspect of it, and I had no idea who the Borgias were, and I initially did not really like the book that much. So it's just funny because after I did develop an interest in the Borgias, I went back and reread this book, and I found myself enjoying it immensely. So that's a good thing. Next, I have some manga here, if you're a fan of manga, and this is called Cantarella by Yu Higari, and this is just a manga series following Cesare Borgia, which sounds pretty awesome. And then the last book that I have here is Malice of Fortune by Michael Ennis, and I have read this book and I have reviewed it, and I didn't particularly like this book that much. There were things that I did enjoy, but a lot of it was just too much for me, a little too much for me. And yeah, this follows Machiavelli and Da Vinci. They team up with a Vatican courtesan to solve the murder mystery involving one of the Pope's sons. So yeah, you would think this book would be pretty cool since it's a murder mystery. It kind of turns into CSI Italy, the Italian Renaissance. But no, it kind of was a little boring for me, unfortunately. So that's it for all my Borgias recommendations, you guys. Have you guys read any of these books? Do you want to read any of them? And yeah, do you share an obsession about the Borgias like I do? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.